Yes, Master.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video. This is your host Ramon Azab, aka Remon with the Alliance, and I'm bringing you a Phase 1 guide for territory battles. We're going to take a look at my Phase 1 today and just kind of walk through all the different steps. Now this is going to be probably the most simple part of all the territory battles phases, so it's going to be pretty elementary to most of you already, even after only doing one. But we're able to actually tell, already at this point, how difficult it's going to be. So, obviously without any changes from the difficulty last week, we can prepare a little bit more for what we can look forward to in the coming phases as we go forward. Now, it is random as you get towards the end, so you're going to start to see some different things. But looking here just at the initial portion of Phase 1, there's only one section of Phase 1, so it's pretty simple to determine where you're going to allocate, obviously, your resources. Now, the first step would be platooning your unnecessary characters. Okay, and what I mean by unnecessary is the characters that you're not going to need to complete the combat mission. So, for example, this would be where you want to get rid of your Kit Fisto, or maybe your Resistance Trooper if he's not necessarily a great character. Your Jedi Knight Guardian, your Barriss Offee if you don't use her or don't have a Zeta on her. Maybe your Phoenix characters if they're not necessarily the strongest characters that you have. Obviously you need them later on, but this would be the area where you want to do that. Now, the next thing you want to do is after you've platooned, you want to complete all the combat missions. Okay, so what you're going to do is go in and like I said, use the characters that are going to survive to the end of these battles. So this is not where you want to use any of the weaker characters that you have. You're going to want to put in your strongest teams, your strongest synergies, preferably teams with a Zeta leadership, kind of like a Finn Zeta here, which is what I'm going with. Now, the main thing you want to look at is survivability. Okay, now Phase 1 difficulty is not going to be so hard. So, for most of the people, the majority of the player base, getting through this, portion of the combat missions is not going to be hard at all. You're just going to want to use your strongest teams anyway, because you never want to take a shot at losing your team points, because you don't get to do these battles over again. So you only get one shot, and you're going to want to go for these characters with the skulls on their heads first. Okay, now I happened to press auto, so I missed the first skull that we came across, but even when you're autoing, you can still adjust the attack meter as I did there to attack that character first. So you want to get rid of those characters immediately. When you get into the later phases, you're going to get to points where you're going to have 5 characters, 4 characters, 3 characters with skulls, and it becomes a lot more difficult. Also, they're the strongest characters in regards to health as well, so you're going to want to just eliminate them first. Also taking a look at your opponent's other characters as well. Like, for example, if you're facing a team that has TIE Fighter Pilot out there, he does a lot of damage with his basic. You may want to go after him first if you don't see any characters with skulls. So you're going to have to just take a look at each combat mission and determine, based upon what's on the board, whether or not you're going to want to use special attacks on this wave, or you're going to want to save them for wave 6. But the main thing is that you save all your cooldowns for phase 6. So if you're going to get an opportunity to refresh your cooldowns by that point, that's fine, and that's not necessarily a huge issue with the Resistance Squad, because using the Resistance Squad, your cooldowns constantly get reset, so it helps you with the ability to have all your cooldowns reset in that last phase when you need them most. Now, when you get into the later phases, there's going to be special attacks that you have, the ion cannon, things like that you can use to wipe out or clear the board in some of the earlier rounds. But again, with that, you're going to want to save that attack to be on cooldown when you get to wave 6 of the combat mission, because obviously that's going to be the hardest one. Sometimes wave 5 can be the hardest one, so it's definitely going to be in the last 2 rounds, but you want to have it there just in case, because your wave 6 can end up being the most difficult. So just going on here into the next portion of the combat missions, I'm going to end up using the Rogue One squad here. And this is another great team, as I said in my top 5 video, because the Rogue One squad has survivability. Over time, you're going to be able to hold down the entire squad in most cases because of the protection regeneration, because of the healing that you get from Chirrut, and also Baze is going to pre-taunt, so that's going to protect the rest of your squad. So characters like Jin and Chirrut and Cassian can do the damage and do the turn meter manipulation you need to get through the combat missions. Now, the other added bonus here is that Jin also can do a revive with any ally that's a rebel after they've died. So in the later phases of territory battles, that's really where that's going to come into play, because if you lose a character or two, you can kind of get back to on stride, or get back on stride by reviving one of those characters. So you're definitely going to want to make sure that you have the most important thing you're going to definitely want to make sure you have is all your abilities available towards the end. So you just want to do the best you can to be prepared for the final waves of this battle. Obviously, we're not going to have any problem completing it here today because I have Gear 11, Rogue One squad, Gear 11 Resistance squad. So for those of you that aren't necessarily there and you have weaker squads, this is going to be still an area where you're going to want to focus and make sure that you get through it, because again, it costs your team points, which will cost your team possibly stars in the end, and every star counts. Especially when it comes to the rewards, and also getting your team the best accomplishment that you can. You just want to attain the highest amount of stars that you can, because it's going to give your guild and team more notoriety, which makes it easier to get recruits in the end. And that's a big deal too, because ultimately you want to make sure that you're continuing to improve your guild and the roster for the guild. So the way to do that is to be successful in things like this, like territory battles and raids, because that brings more people to the community, and also brings more people that are looking to improve your roster into recruiting. So that's definitely something to think about. But yeah, ultimately again, getting through phase 1 combat missions is going to be the easiest part of or the easiest set of combat missions you're going to get out of all the phases. But once you're completed with that, you're going to move on to step 3, which is deploying the remaining characters that you have, because you're going to want to allocate all the rest of the galactic power that you have into that one territory that you have in phase 1. So I'm going to go in here and just deploy the rest of the characters that I have. So the remaining GP or galactic power that I have is 1.446 million. And we're just going to drop that down, even though my guild already had this section 3-starred at the start. So basically that's territory battles in a nutshell, or at least phase 1 of it. We're going to take a look at all the different phases over the next couple days as my guild and I try to strive to get back to 43 stars again this territory battles. But I definitely appreciate you guys checking out the video, and as we get into the later phases, I think it'll be a little bit more interesting also, because we'll get to take a look at each battle, and when we get to the parts where it's actually more competitive and actually have to really be more careful about which abilities that you use, I'll be able to break that down for you guys and show you what I'm doing, and what has been working for me in the later rounds. But we'll pick things up again tomorrow with phase 2 of the territory battles. I'll hope to have that out again for you guys tomorrow night. If not, I'll have it the following morning. But I appreciate you guys checking out the video. If you guys have any questions, you can always come over into our Discord. Just go over to www.thealliancegaming.com. Just follow the instructions over into Discord. Also on that website, thealliancegaming.com, there's tons of content from other Alliance members, including myself, that can give you guides for territory battles, guides for raids, guides for any facet of the game that you can imagine. But as always, I'll see you guys on the next one, and may the Force be with you.
Yes, Master.